You seem to still be up there somewhere.
Maybe I am. There are flying saucers.
Supposing they're Martians or something in there.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Asherz, and this is...
Tobias.
Tobias, how was your weekend?
Oh boy, it was good. It was good. So I had the pleasure of interviewing my good friend Josh Kutchin. Richard and I were able to sit down with him, face to face, online, of course, and interview him for the book we're working on. This new Mothman book, and it was a great conversation. Josh is a great guy. He's one of the smartest people I know, like just by far, like just intimidatingly intelligent, right? And he's really well versed in high strangeness, of course. And so the perspective that he was able to lend for this work is just stupendous, honestly. Like, it's exactly what I was looking for. I think people are really going to like it. So that was exciting. That was a lot of fun. And I don't get to talk to Josh that much because he lives way the hell out in Georgia. And I'm in Wisconsin, of course. And so if we don't happen to run into each other at a conference or something, which, you're lucky if that happens once every couple of years, then it's, you got to hang out online. So, I mean, thank God we have like Zoom and shit now. Like we live in an age of miracles where you can just, get on your crazy video phone or laptop or whatever and just talk to people. But still, even that doesn't happen enough. So any opportunity to get to hang out and talk to him is great. But that was a lot of fun. That was exciting. Otherwise, just still hard at work on that. I'm trying to finish up the chapter in which I had interviewed Richard Hatem, the screenwriter for the Mothman prophecies. That was interesting, just from like a cultural perspective, right? Like kind of seeing that side of the Mothman phenomenon. So that's what I've been doing. Like otherwise, like, I don't know, I had some friends over on Saturday. It was pretty fun. We played some Warhammer 40K, not the miniatures game, but like the role-playing game. For anybody who's listening, who's nerdy enough to know or care about the difference. So that was cool. It was Wrath and Glory for anybody, again, in that space who knows what I'm talking about and is interested. So that was super fun. Boy, I don't know. I'm getting sick of watching the Bears lose every fucking weekend. Other than that, boy, that is about it. How was your weekend?
Yours was way more exciting than mine. I can tell you that.
Okay. That's pretty sad. Honestly.
Yeah, it's been pretty sad lately. No, actually, I mean, I'm trying to utilize my time better. So, I can't say it enough. I'm working 2 jobs right now. That is mostly what I do, which means that I've been at home a lot. And I hate that. I'm not a homebody. But I work from home. And so, I, I could say it sucks, but at the same time, I don't want to not work from home. You know what I mean?
Oh, working from home is the best.
Right. So, it's got its pros and cons. So on the days off that I've had, or at least the off times that I have available, I've really been trying to maximize those times and not be at home, which means a lot of shit at home is not getting done. But that's a problem for a different day when I'm not working 2 jobs, that's not my business. So
Fair.
even though it's my home, still not my business. So Friday night, I went out with some friends. I went to a bar for karaoke. I don't sing karaoke, but I don't mind watching other people do it, and I don't mind socializing. I like being around other people. The problem is that, man, this was not my kind of bar. This was like a country bar.
Did you not know ahead of time?
No, I'd never been.
Oh boy.
I got invited to someone else's birthday party that I did not know. And that's fine.
No.
It was okay, but But I knew people there. So, I mean, I went and it was not a big deal. But like, I thought it would be a great time to socialize with some new faces. And I was not doing none of that. So, this is how country this country bar is. The police showed up, not because they were called to show up. They showed up to come hang out. Like 5 police.
Were they in uniform?
Yeah.
Hilarious.
I was like, and it just made me very uncomfortable. I was like, I feel like I'm in trouble,
Right.
So, but I did not go to jail. So I did not break a law and did not get in trouble.
Good job.
So I did that. And then, the other side of it was like, so my kid is going to be 13. She's at that age, and
Oh,
I
boy.
think about what I was like at that age, and we are totally different people, and that's fine. I was terrible at that age. I'm glad she's not. But like, man, she doesn't do anything. Like, kids don't fucking do anything anymore.
They don't.
Like, they literally don't do anything. It's so weird. And I'm like, if they socialize outside of school, it's through like their electronics, so like their gaming systems or phones or whatever.
Sure.
But they don't like go hang out with each other. And I'm like, well, what the fuck do kids do? How can I encourage my kid to invite other kids out and about? Like, what is it that we could go do? I don't even know what kids do.
Right.
And so I'm like, do kids go to the mall anymore? Is that a thing? It turns out
Oh, God. I don't think so.
they don't. Right. They really don't. But I encouraged my kid to ask another kid to go to the mall. And she did find somebody to go to the mall with. So I took my child and her friend to that mall. Now you can't, like, if you're under 16, you can't hang out at the mall by yourself anymore.
Yeah, we have that here too. It's weird.
Right. It's fucking weird. Like, and it was okay. I mean, so I went and, patrolled them at the little mall and, they shopped and I spent way too much money, which I guess is, I understand why kids don't do anything anymore, but
Yeah.
But it was nice. It was nice to be able to facilitate that. And so I don't know the parent. So like the first person she ever asked, this is where, this is the important part. The kid was like, well, no, I can't go. So she called, like they called each other and was talking on the phone about it. I could hear a whole conversation. He's like, I can't go because my mom doesn't know you and my mom doesn't know your mom. So I can't go.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, that's understandable. I get that we don't know each other, but like then we can make plans where we could all like meet each other. Like, how the fuck are kids supposed to hang out if the parents aren't willing to meet each other? Like, if
Yeah,
that's
that's
the
weird.
requirement, you know what I mean? So it's like strange. Well, in the second case for the other friend, I guess there was looser parents. They did come out and introduce themselves to me while I was picking up their kid. And I kind of want to hang out with this kid's parents.
Okay. Nice.
They seemed really like my kind of people, and so like I pick up the kid or whatever and I was like, yeah, we're just going to blah 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 and we'll be back. I said, I thought maybe afterwards we'd probably go get some booze, and the dad's like, well, make sure you bring it here. I mean, they seem like my kind of people, but I guess I don't even know as an adult how I can now be like, hey, you want to hang out sometime without it sounding weird and forced.
Just make their drunk kid do it. Just have them ask. Get them, after you get them liquored up. For real though, like don't be getting kids drunk. Unless it's hilarious, in which case go ahead. But no, I think you just ask them if they want to do something. It could even be something like involving like both kids, I don't know. What do people go and do?
Right.
Like,
exactly. Maybe I should just invite them to the mall.
I mean, you could, or you could be like, hey, I was thinking about, having, or like, my kid wanted to have your kid over. If you guys want, you could just come over too. We could have a beer or whatever while the kids are hanging out.
And then just leave when you're done.
Yeah, like that would be a normal thing to do. And then, like, if they come over and it's cool and you hit it off, then you could be like, oh man, this was really fun. Hey, why don't we go do whatever the hell it is that adult friends do?
without the kids, right? Yeah,
Right.
because it was like I could like tell on their end that they were also interested in hanging out.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It was so weird. And it just felt so forced, but like we were both like, wow, this person seems really cool. I wish they were my friend. And
Yeah.
like then that was it.
They're probably lonely too. Like it
Right.
sucks being an adult, you know, like you don't have time for your friends anymore. It's the worst.
So I think that, like, right. So they probably went in their house and had that like this exact conversation and was like, how do we hang out with this person?
Yeah.
You
Well, there
know,
you go.
so
I mean, I think that's usually what happens is if you're feeling a certain way, we're never alone in our feelings. Somebody else is always, has always, will always, is always feeling the fucking same way that we are,
yeah.
whether we realize it or not. So, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing
totally.
about it. Like, you have to be the person that's willing to just take the risk. I mean, what are they going to do otherwise? Say, no, we're not interested, and then that's the end of it. I mean, then we're not hanging out. We're already not hanging out, you know? So,
Yeah, right. Seems like a lateral move.
you know, so what do I have to lose at this point? So anyway, I was just thinking about how funny that was. And you had kind of mentioned, you know, speaking with Joshua and how, well, he's in Georgia, so I never get to talk to him. As if like the phone doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like as if we can't pick up the phone at any time and just call whoever the fuck we want to talk to at any time.
Right. No, sure. Well, that's what I said. I said we never get to hang out.
Well, that's true. You did say that.
Because what, like, you know, all we ever get to do is like talk, you know, but it's cool because you can do video talking and stuff now.
Yeah,
So,
nowadays
like
so
video
it feels
chats.
a little more
Yeah.
personal. Just what a world 2024 is. You know, it's interesting. So
It is.
anyway, that was my weekend.
Nice. That was not unexciting.
That's true. It wasn't unexciting. I guess I didn't do anything in the paranormal is how I should have opened that.
Oh, well, who cares? Paranormal's like that. That shit's overrated. It's
I know,
fine.
right? Who cares about that? Um, you know, so anyway, that's what I had. I don't have any news. Speaking of the paranormal, apparently pretty much nobody's doing anything in the paranormal because I don't have anything to share this week.
Okay.
Um,
I've got one. I sent you that video earlier.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Sure. So this is, oops, if I can get my computer to work. There we go. About a mysterious orb caught on camera by a Fox 5 News helicopter flying over New York City. So this video was reportedly shot sometime within the past calendar year, according to Good Day New York, who originally aired the clip. Although they couldn't say exactly when it was recorded. They did also confirm that the video had not been tampered with in any way. So what we do know is that this helicopter was recording footage over the Hudson River and past Lower Manhattan when an object seemingly flew in front of its camera. So then on November 18th, Fox 5 posted a video to YouTube covering congestion pricing, in which the orb can be seen to appear at approximately 2 minutes, 44 seconds ish into this video. So if you're looking for the video and you find it, and I have it linked in this article, you don't have to watch the whole thing. Like literally just skip to like just to be safe, skip to like 2 minutes, 40 seconds and you'll be there. You know,
Unless
you won't have
you're
to.
super interested in congestion pricing in New York.
That's true.
You know, then if we're not here to kink shame.
That's fair. Yeah, like if you're like a weird, like if you're a masochist or something, by all means. I was going to say a weird masochist, and then I was like, you know what? That's the definition of kink shaming. How dare you, Tobias?
Exactly. Okay,
And so I caught myself.
fix it. If you're a masochist, you better go fucking watch the whole goddamn video right now.
Yeah, you piece of shit. All right. So in this video, the object appears to be flying with incredible speed towards this helicopter, which was filming south of Battery Park. And as the object approaches, it seems to turn from white to blue in color. So it's zooming along the Hudson. As it gets closer to this helicopter, seems to turn from white to blue. Now, the object appears extraordinary, but some experts, of course, there are always some experts who are going to do this, believe there is a very ordinary explanation. So the first one, in a comment to the New York Post, theoretical physicist cosmologist and Harvard professor Avi Loeb, said that he believes the orb to be an optical artifact. So what he said precisely was, this is most likely an optical artifact from the helicopter glass in front of the camera, namely a bright spot from the reflection of sunlight as the camera gradually changes its orientation relative to the sun and the ground. Now, also in a statement to the New York Post, Tim, I want to say Gallaudet, a retired rear admiral in the United States Navy and CEO of Ocean Consulting, basically agreed with Loeb's assessment. Basically said, the same thing. For several reasons, looks like an artifact and not an actual UAP. Of course, he called it a fucking UAP instead of being cool and calling it a UFO. However, there are people who suspect that it could be an actual solid object and not just some light artifact. The most popular theory there amongst skeptics is that it is a drone that is basically, it appears to move faster than it really is due to motion parallax. So the speed of the helicopter combined with the camera's movement is just creating this illusion of it moving very, very quickly. However, again, this is according to the New York Post, their photo experts found the video to defy easy explanations. So first of all, they noted that the object appears to be opaque and not translucent. So journalist Shane Galvin wrote in an article about the orb for the Post that this characteristic indicated to photo experts at the Post that it is not a standard lens flare, which refracts see-through light on camera lenses and also bears a distinct aperture mark, which is true. Galvin went on to say, at the start of the video, it appears that the object crosses in front of a building in New Jersey near Hoboken. A brief shadow is visible on a building. The trace of the shadow is then picked up by the possible object or photographic blemish. Now he continues. The image then quickly crosses the tree line and enters the airspace of the Hudson River, moving away from New Jersey, banking along the lower Manhattan shoreline, and down toward the mouth of the bay. So he points out then that the orb follows two distinct arcing pathways, first going across the camera left to right, then banking back left, cutting across the center of the frame. And this is all movement that could be described as directed. That is to say, it is purposeful movement. Somebody's making a decision. Finally, he concluded, if the supposed object did originate in the sky in the vicinity of Hoboken and then proceeded to travel all the way downriver, passing the tip of Manhattan, it would indicate an incredible speed. If the object traversed the 3-mile distance in 4 seconds, that would put its speed somewhere in the vicinity of 2,700 miles per hour, more than double the speed of an F-18. Now, personally, I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I think we're doing some fuzzy math there to make it seem a little more miraculous. But he does raise some good points. And I don't know that it is explained away as a lens flare quite as easily as some people would say. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I think it's a little more interesting than that. But you watched the video, so what do you think?
I think it's hilarious. It makes me laugh and giggle. It does. It makes me think of the Jetsons.
Okay.
I can't really explain why. I don't know. I just imagine, their little hover car like noise, like while it's zooming around the corner.
Okay, sure. I can picture that in my mind.
No, it is interesting. It is an interesting video. It was clearly there was no reaction at all from the news crew. I wonder if the people in the helicopter, did they see it? That wasn't, nobody's asked them as far as I know.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you know what? I didn't mention it, but in fact, yes.
Okay.
So at the time, let's see, Good Day New York newsman Dan Bowens, he was on the desk with co-anchor Tashania Whitlow when that segment aired, and after which he took to Instagram and posted a clip of the orb. So they seem to notice it very quickly once the segment aired. What I don't have confirmation on is whether or not they noticed it in the helicopter when it was happening. Now that would be interesting, right?
Well, right, because I mean, if it's a UFO, let's be honest, they'd be like, "Oh, holy shit, what the fuck was that?" Because
Right.
they're literally in the helicopter. Now, the camera, I believe, is not actually operated by a person. It is like attached to the helicopter, so it's not like you had a cameraman that was like zooming in on it. Well,
Sure.
maybe. I think it just depends on what camera you're using. But this looks like a very B-roll type of shot, which it was.
It is.
So it just tells me it was, but anyway, I just would be curious. I mean, did the pilot of the helicopter see it? How can we get a hold of who that person is and figure that out? I think that's kind of missing before we can even try to draw any type of conclusion, because if they didn't see it at all, then it was obvious to me, then it's obviously some type of optical something going on with the camera.
Good point. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I tend to be very dubious of any photographic or video evidence that involves any sort of anomaly that isn't seen with the naked eye. So if it's just something that they notice after the picture is taken, after the video is recorded, whatever, then yeah, I mean, 9 times out of 10, those turn out to be some kind of obvious issue with the actual filming itself. So yeah, I would like to know that too.
I mean, so I think we need to know that before these experts chime in. What are the experts on? Experts of reasonable explanations. I don't. I mean,
it's the typical they are just the typical sort of talking heads that get tapped for stuff like this, and they have impressive credentials. Obviously, before anybody gets in a rage thinking, "Who the fuck does Tobias think he is?" Oh my God, how dare you? No, I know they have impressive credentials, and I'm sure that they are smart guys.
Avi Loeb is somebody who, like, he typically would, like, he wants this to be anomalous. Sure. Like, he's a very interesting character. I don't know how I feel about him exactly. So far, I like him. I don't see any reason not to like him. But maybe I'm wrong for that. Maybe he's done something problematic or weird, like try to pass chandeliers as UFOs. I don't know. But, he seems very like a credible person. And he's also definitely in the UFO game. And I think that, if anybody out of all those experts were to be like, oh yeah, it's definitely unexplained, it would have been him, and he didn't. So I think that's important to note.
Yeah, I mean, that is also true. Yeah, although I don't know. I guess I don't know him. I don't really know him at all personally, but as far as being familiar with his work, even, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with it, I guess, to where I would be willing to make some sort of like value judgment, Yeah. I don't know how likely he would be to present one particular narrative over any other, really. But these kinds of statements just kind of strike me as, okay, I took a quick look at this for like 3 seconds. The Post wanted a statement about it here, without doing a lot of without doing a lot of what we would consider the due diligence into actually making a definitive statement about something like this.
Yeah, well, and sometimes you just can't. There's so much of this out there.
Sure. Oh yeah, I don't even necessarily hold it against them. It's just
right.
Like people I think should understand the difference between like thorough investigation and just giving a quick answer because that's all you have time for. And that's what this newspaper expects.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying the people that they should have asked was the fucking pilot of the helicopter. But, whatever. I guess I'm a better journalist than they are. I don't know. That's
well, then the New York Post, probably.
I'm just saying, I should have started there. No, it is an interesting video. Like I said, for whatever reason, it reminds me of the Jetsons. If somebody wants to take the video, who is better at video editing than I am, and superimpose one of the cars from the Jetsons on there, I would love that.
Add the sound effect too.
Yes, you have to add the sound effect. Yeah, definitely. At minimum, if somebody could at least add the sound effect Maybe Nate can do that for me. Do that video. I would be very happy. So that's my professional opinion on it.
Sure. I mean, that's what the investigation is missing, obviously.
I would love that so much. I'm a simple person, you guys. I really am. But very neat. I hope somebody asks the helicopter pilot.
Me too. I would if I could, but I don't know who they are.
I don't know who they are either, and I'm not gonna find out. I can't go to New York and investigate this.
We're going to New York tomorrow. Let's go.
If people want to pay for it, we will absolutely go to New York and investigate this thoroughly. So all you got to do is go to patreon.com/WednesdaysTalk and sign up there. That would be a great way to do it. Yeah. Well, get those numbers up there. We'll go to New York and investigate this.
Absolutely. And while you're working on that, of course, you can listen to us talk about, whatever weird thing happens to be on our mind, most specifically, and probably most recently, reading off weird unsolved mysteries reports that came in after the filming of The Mothman Revisited. Yeah. So
you're not going to get that on Netflix.
No, you're not. Because they don't have time, and we do.
We do. I love that.
Yes. So yeah, look for those coming to the Patreon soon. I would I'm sure as you've noticed, if you listen to this podcast and you've heard me talking about how just fucking busy I am writing this book. As this book winds down, I will be able to hop on there and start doing some. But I'll tell you what, and I'm sure Asherz is super busy too, but I'm going to obviously share these reports with her. So if she gets on there a little bit before I do and read some off, I wouldn't be mad about it.
You might get 10 in a week and you might get none in a week. We'll see how this goes.
A ringing endorsement.
We'll see how it goes. Well, but that's the thing. It's going to take you a while to listen to 10. So just saying.
That's true. And there's like 130 plus of these. So.
We'll get through them. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about in today's episode. Oh my gosh. This is huge. Before we get too much into it, Tobias, what did you know about this circumstance of events? Whatever you want to call it.
Sure. I had definitely heard of Zigmund Adamski and his mysterious death before. I mean, this has been a story that has been circulating in UFO circles since before I was born, Yeah. And it's certainly interesting, but I also never really understood. Okay, let me back up. Once I reached adulthood, I never really understood why it was associated with UFOs so much. When I was a kid, for sure, I'd be like, oh God, yeah, death by UFO confirmed. Absolutely. Deadly UFO abduction. But now, not so sure. Seems less likely.
Well, there is a part 1 and like a part 2 to this story. We're going to tell both parts today in this episode. But I get what you mean. I was not familiar with this. I wasn't as familiar as I am now doing this episode. I researched it because of the episode, but kind of knew of it from people, rumblings throughout the community. I think somebody had requested this topic, and I think I did like a quick look on it to kind of to see if it was even anything worth talking about. A lot of people request stuff, and sometimes it's just not worth talking about. I'll be honest with you. It happens. But this is not the case with this one. I'm really into the story. I think it's really neat. Whether or not, at the end of the day, the conclusion is that you think it's UFO related or not, that's up to you, listener, to decide once we give you the details. So let's get into it. So June 6, 1980, 56-year-old Zigmund Adamski, we're going to go ahead and call him what everybody else did, Ziggy, left to go to get some groceries. He was on foot. He leaves his house and then he didn't come back home. As a matter of fact, 3 days later, Ziggy was found dead in a coal mining yard, like a coal place. As a matter of fact, he was found 20 miles roughly from his home on top of a 10-foot pile of coal. Okay. This part isn't particularly crazy. I mean, I'm sure it's crazy for the family. Don't let me downplay the fact that it's not crazy for the family who experience this. But, people go missing all the time. Shit happens.
It's true.
But as we dive more into the details, things are going to get weirder and weirder. Okay, so his body was discovered by Trevor Parker, Trevor being the son of the coal yard owner. He was the only person that was there that day. He had kind of left and come back. He had some deliveries that he was doing with the coal yard. And he was there at least one other time looking at that particular pile of coal earlier in the day. And when he had come back later, that's when he discovered Ziggy's body on top of the pile of coal. So he did admit that the gate to the coal yard while he was not there had been unlocked. Okay, so foul play or whatever. That's fine. But that's who found him. The state that he was found in, like I said, just progressively gets weirder. So Ziggy was found he was wearing like a suit when he had left the house, and he was found in that suit, except the shirt was gone. His jacket was on, though. The suit jacket was on over top of his unclothed torso.
So he was going to the club, obviously.
He was. He went to the club. He had a huge bender and passed out at a coal yard, I guess. Because not only was his shirt missing, but his watch and his wallets were also gone. Now, those items were never found, so they've never been able to recover the shirt, the wallet, or the watch in the years since. Okay, so who knows where they ended up. His pants, all of his other clothes that were on him, the investigators, now this could be a bias for them finding the body, but they all said it looked like these items, he was dressed rather than he was just naturally wearing them and fell to the ground and died.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I mean, I'm trying to picture what that looks like. Tobias, do you have any idea what that might look like for a corpse to be dressed versus naturally clothed?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I've been thinking about that some myself, right? And well, it's true though, and I don't know the specific details of what led them to believe that. So I guess I'm not completely sure if it's just, I mean, obviously, like the fact that he is missing his shirt, but he's still wearing his suit jacket. Beyond that, like, I guess I don't know if if buttons weren't buttoned that were supposed to be buttons and things like that, then maybe that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But boy, if his pants were inside out or something,
right.
I really wish they would have mentioned that.
What were the details that led them to think that potentially he did not put his own clothes on? That's strange. I mean, but okay, whatever. Whatever. I don't work in forensics, I guess. So, anyway, another thing that they had noted was that his hair had been cut in like a rough manner. And again, there's no real details as to what exactly that means, I don't know. I think they're just saying that it's like missing pieces randomly. Like somebody just went fucking crazy with a pair of scissors on the guy.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, I mean, yes, like the haircut thing is what it sounded like. I just found this, and I've read this over and over like several times, and I don't know how it's based on it, but okay, how his clothes were messed up. So I guess his trousers and belt were fashioned crudely, so just not, they just weren't fashioned very well, I guess. But then his coat was buttoned up the wrong way, which, let me tell you, it's possible to button your coat the wrong way.
It is,
folks.
Yeah.
Not
yourself.
saying I've done it, but I'm not saying I haven't done it. All right. Well, we'll just leave it at that. So that's the evidence they're going for. But yeah, like the haircut thing is weird. Because I mean, it sure does sound like people or somebody just was just cutting chunks of his hair out, right?
Right, like a toddler took scissors to his head.
Yeah, like me with one of my sister's Barbies.
Right. Yeah, he had a Barbie haircut. I imagine that's what they're saying. But this is where it gets really fun. So his face was like frozen in terror. As a matter of fact, one of the police officers who we're going to talk about here in a bit would like later go on to basically just really hone in on this detail about how he looked like he had like died from fear, basically, like something scared him to death. That's really interesting. Do you know why that's really interesting?
Because it sounds made up.
It does sound made up because dead bodies don't like if you make a face when you die, like you're dead. All of your muscles relax.
Yeah.
Like they don't get frozen. Like I know that's really cool in like horror movies and stuff, but that's not actually how it happens.
Correct.
So, anyway, this is just from, again, a police officer who happened to be there, and we'll go into more. But there are other things that the coroner reports, and that's what we're going to get into here. He had burn marks on his shoulders, neck, and the back of his head. These weird oval shaped burn marks all over the place. They don't really know where they came from. But not just the burn marks, he also had an unidentifiable ointment on said burn marks.
That is weird. Did you mention too that like his clothes seemed conspicuously clean for him being on top of a coal pile?
I didn't. I didn't.
Okay.
But that is a good yes. That is a really good point. Yes, his clothes were really clean. Other things of note was that he had been missing for 3 days, and when they, were doing the autopsy, they found that his beard had only 1 day of growth on it, even though he was missing for 3.
I thought he was missing for 5 days.
That
is it 3? Is there some controversy?
There is some controversy there. Some things report 3, and some things report 5.
Okay.
So
regardless, he only had 1 day of growth on his beard, which is weird either way.
It is weird either way. Somebody had tried to file a FOIA report on his like autopsy and stuff, and had like pushback from the county because they were like, "Well, that's not us. You can't file. We didn't cover that case." So then when the person was like, "Well, who then covered it?" They were like, "Oh, we don't know." Super unhelpful. Which this was a weird story. So I'll say this happened across the pond. It didn't happen in the US. I'm not familiar with FOIAs and how that works in another country. I don't know. I've never done it. I thought
I don't know.
I thought that was a US thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our like judicial system is based off of like the English, or I guess I should say like the British judicial system. So I guess it makes sense that we have similar laws and we
probably have an equivalent to FOIA.
Right. And so, again, this was in Yorkshire, England. So I don't really know what their freedom of information laws are like there.
Yeah.
But it seems to work very similar to how it works here, because that we don't have this information and we don't know how to get it response is also common on this side of the pond when you try to file FOIA requests to people who don't feel like answering them.
Right. Well, and we kind of talked about this last episode a little bit about how like here in the United States, like you can just email a coroner's office and they'll just email you back whatever you want, like about anybody. it doesn't matter who. Not that you should go and flood a bunch of coroner's offices with, celebrity autopsies and stuff, but you can't. I mean, you could if you wanted that. Like, you could get that information very easily. Just a phone call is all it takes. So I don't know if it's that easy for them. So that's where, like, the date, I couldn't really clarify exactly the date that he was found, but I found that more sources said 3 days rather than 5.
Okay.
Either
Good to
way,
know.
whether it was 3 or 5, his beard still had only 1 day of growth on it, not 3 and not 5. Which is interesting for a man that disappeared a couple days ago. But how do they, I mean, I'm not a man. I know that people were wondering, but I'm not. And
Okay.
is it like beard growth different for everybody? Like, some dudes just straight up don't grow them at all, right? I mean,
I was just thinking the same thing, where I was just like, how are they measuring 1 day's worth of beard growth? Like, what are they comparing it to? Because you're right. Like, it's going to grow at different speeds for different guys, So how do they know how fast this dude's beard grows? Especially, like, okay, if he had been missing for like a month and he only had like a little bit of stubble or something, I'd be like, whoa, that's crazy. Because you would expect over the course of a month, to be able to grow like a significant amount. I mean, if you look at him and he's otherwise has like significant body hair, then you can assume that he's going to be able to grow a beard, right? And yeah, if it had been a long time, then you'd be like, oh, whoa, that's crazy. He barely, he's only got a little bit of stubble. But like, knowing the difference between what 1 day's growth should be and what 3 days growth should be, that sounds like one of those details that is kind of just a little embellished to make the story sound stranger than it is.
Well, and hey, who knows? Maybe there's some weird thing that you can do with putting a piece of hair under a microscope and it's like rings on a tree, right? You can just tell. I don't know,
I guess I'm not familiar enough with 1980 technology and
Right.
and investigatory techniques to know if they used the paper method of measuring beard growth.
Yeah.
I guess it's possible.
But the beard growth comment, here is what's important to note. The beard growth comments, the burns, and the mysterious ointment are all not from just random players in this event. This is all coming straight from the coroner's office. So at minimum, they're credible claims, or they should be credible claims. So that coroner must know about hair growth, and he can tell when's the last time you shaved just by plucking a hair from your chinny chin chin, I guess. Impressive. I think there's money in that somewhere. But
sure.
Anyway, and maybe there is, and maybe it's working for being a coroner. I don't know.
Yeah, this is just big coroner once again trying to sell their narrative about beard growth.
I know, damn them, of course. So anyway, so again, those claims those are allegedly ripped right from the autopsy. It's actually the coroner has come forward and talked a lot. Well, there's a medical examiner and a coroner. The coroner has talked a lot about just how none of this really makes any sense. But at the end of the day, the final verdict on his death was a heart attack. And that's just basically a catch-all, and can be a catch-all for, we don't fucking know, but he's dead, right? There's no obvious signs of injury. Even like the burn marks, they weren't, they weren't fatal burn marks. They were just like weird burn marks all over his body. But wouldn't have killed him, right? But he didn't have a head injury, anything like that. There was no obvious signs of this guy dying besides heart attack. So that's what they chalked it up to. Now, just talking in more of some of the details, yes, his clothes were very clean. It wouldn't be clean for somebody rolling around in coal. And not just that, they really couldn't find any path that would make sense for him to have climbed this 10-foot pile of coal. Like, there were no signs of, him misstepping in a spot and, the coal falling down or anything like that. But what they did determine was that he had to have died sometime between 11:15 and 1:15. So, Trevor Parker, who discovered his body, I mean, right on the money then, it wouldn't have been there the first time that he was there.
True.
So, a very weird set of circumstances surrounding this guy's death. And I agree with you, Tobias. How does somebody go from this to UFOs? Well, let's talk about maybe some of the other speculations, some of the other theories that people have about it. Could he have somehow, during the middle of a heart attack, climbed on top of a 10-foot pile of coal and died there? I guess so. But where the fuck was he right before that? Was he maybe having some type of episode, right? Maybe some type of psychotic episode, or even, I don't know, maybe the guy had a touch of the dementia. I don't know. We don't know. He would have ended up there somehow. Where the fuck did he go for those days that he was gone? Like, what's that about? He doesn't have like any strange histories of drugs or alcohol, or medical problems. I mean, I don't think he was. I mean, he was 56 years old, but I don't think he was like terribly out of shape or anything. And he couldn't have gotten to the top of the coal pile if he was. So
Yeah, I mean, his wife was in poor health and he was in declining health. And so it was speculated at the time that it would have been difficult, if not impossible, for him to climb up there by himself under ideal circumstances.
right. So I mean, but then that doesn't rule out. I mean, stranger things have happened. We've seen people that are dying or whatever do some weird shit, and maybe this is just one of those cases. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
was he bit by like a snake or something? Yeah, snake bit up in his body, and he was freaking out. So then where did the burns come from? Who knows? That doesn't matter in this case of prosaic explanation where nothing weird at all is going on, and he just died of a heart attack. It's whatever. So that's kind of just more the basic, if we're going with the narrative that there's no foul play and he died from natural causes. There's a lot of things up for debate. There's a lot of boxes still not checked. That doesn't make sense. And I'm going to go ahead and say that's not real. Like, that's not what happened.
Oh, you don't think that this 56-year-old man in ailing health like climbed up to the top of like a 10-foot pile of coal and then had a heart attack and died?
Yeah, after missing for 3 days, where he somehow stopped and shaved and then burned himself and then treated it with Neosporin.
Right.
Yeah, no, I don't think that happened.
Well, it makes too much sense. Really.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
That's how I want to go.
That one just doesn't. It's not jiving. I'm not. We're not getting along. Me and that theory.
Yeah, it's fucking batshit. Like, that's bonkers.
That's and I'm not saying aliens. I'm just saying that doesn't make sense either.
Right.
That makes aliens make more sense than this. It does. I hate to say it, but it does. I don't hate to say it. Let's be honest. It's me, but
Yeah, come on.
I'm just saying that one. We're throwing that one away. So there you go. There's the prosaic explanation. It's gone. We're not doing that anymore. Not here. No. Not on Wednesdays we talk weird. We're not doing that.
No, he probably didn't climb up there and have a heart attack and die.
No, it just doesn't make sense. So his wife, when he initially disappeared, his wife thought that he was kidnapped. And that's really, really interesting to me. And nobody talks about it because everybody's too fucking busy talking about the aliens.
Drives me fucking nuts. You know how hard it is to find any information on this case that doesn't involve death by alien abduction?
Right.
Like, it's way too difficult. And there are some really interesting possibilities that are way likelier. But instead, all you get is like, I don't know, maybe aliens, because we don't have a better explanation. And if you don't have a better explanation, it's got to be aliens. Fucking
right,
dummies.
Exactly. We're not able, just like asking the fucking helicopter pilot if he saw the UFO. I mean, we're not able to ask the right questions to even try to get to the bottom of it. And that sucks. But, I do want to talk about that. Why would she automatically assume that he was kidnapped?
Because there was some shit going on in their life that made her think that was a possibility.
Right, but what?
There was some family drama, actually.
Oh, okay. So you got some on this. All right.
Sure. So there was some family drama where a relative of theirs was having like a marital dispute, and they had split. and one of them was staying with the Adamskis, and a like restraining order had been filed. And this was like just a few days before this wedding, this big family wedding that was happening, where he was actually going to walk his godfather, or his, good Lord, his goddaughter down the aisle. It was like a whole thing. And so, like, amidst this drama, he goes missing. And so, like, I think it's only natural for her to be like, oh, well, it was probably that dude that we had to take the restraining order out on, who did it, because like his wife was staying with us as a result of this family drama.
Yeah. So, I mean, that sounds, that's checking a lot of my boxes,
Right.
Because here's the thing is that he wasn't unkempt, right? He was very clean. We know that. If, he had been shaving and whatever, then maybe he ran into somebody that he knew along his way to the store, somebody he knew and somebody he trusted. And maybe that person was untrustworthy and, brought him into the arms of the other violent person. And here we are. Maybe the burns was some type of torture. I mean, humans are sick, like they are. If you've heard some episodes of the show, you know that.
The haircut could have been part of that.
It could have been.
Like, so you've got this guy, you've kidnapped him, you're holding him hostage, and you start out with something that sucks, but is relatively it's relatively unharmful, so you're like, all right, dude, do what we want you to do, or I'm gonna cut your hair or whatever. And so they start giving him this haircut, just cutting off chunks of his hair. And then it just escalates, everything ramps up from there to the point where they're like burning him with cigars or whatever.
But how would that, but the only thing it doesn't check off, because even then, right? Well, now, okay, so he had his shirt off, right? And they're like, get your fucking clothes on, we're going somewhere. And he throws on his jacket and buttons it wrong because he's in a rush. Without a shirt, they go, he dies, they carry his body up the coal pile, which would be a really dumb place to dump a body, but you're already talking about people who are willing to kill someone, another person, so...
They make bad decisions, yeah.
Right. But then how did he die?
Well, what if they were keeping him in his underwear and torturing him, and he dies of a heart attack during the torture.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh shit, what are we going to do now? Hurry up, get him dressed. We got to get him the fuck out of here. We can't just keep this, if it's like in somebody's garage or something, we can't just keep this corpse around. So they throw his clothes on, don't do a great job of dressing him because they're panicked. They didn't expect him to die. And they're in a hurry, they want to get him the fuck out of there. And so they do a shitty job of dressing him, rush him out. They're looking around. They're like, what the fuck are we going to do with this guy? Well, let's dump him on top of this coal pile. And people will just think, I don't know, he climbed up there and had a heart attack or something. Oh, we're stupid criminals. What do we know?
Yeah. Well, right. You can't ask them because it worked. I mean, they got away with it.
Right. I mean, it's just like in hindsight, it seems super obvious what probably happened to him. But all you hear about is the fucking alien abduction shit. That's all you hear about.
And I couldn't even find information about that family drama. I didn't see that anywhere. Right.
It's tough to find more than what I just said.
Yeah.
Like specific names and the people involved, because the police at the time ruled it out right away. They were just like, oh no, no family's involved, and it's just like, okay, there, Officer fucking Donut. What have you actually done to investigate this? When the wife is saying she thinks her husband was kidnapped, and you just magically rule out the family, in which there was a ton of fucking drama happening.
Wow. Yeah, there was, I couldn't find any of that. So, that definitely adds another, but the fact, she did say she thought he was kidnapped. Obviously there was something going on to make her believe. People don't just, if Emily went to the store and she was gone for a long time, I don't know if your first thought would be, well, she must have been kidnapped.
It depends. If she's gone for like a day, I am assuming she's kidnapped, yes. Like at that point, it is most likely a human trafficking situation.
Well, that's true. She's a woman in the Midwest, and it's a danger. Oof. That's a fair point. But there are. I mean, people get in car accidents, they end up in jail, or the hospital, or it happens. But your mind goes
Sure.
everywhere. Like she seemed pretty sure that he was kidnapped.
Right. Yeah. No. And that's a good point. Like rather than being like, oh, could he have been, like you said, could he have been in an accident? Did he just fucking run off? Does he have a secret mistress somewhere? No, right to kidnapping.
Straight to kidnapping. And you don't usually just go straight to kidnapping unless you have a reason to. And it turns out she had a reason to. So, and even like the mysterious ointment, it's probably not that mysterious. Like it's just they don't know if it was Neosporin or if it was store brand or
right. Like they were probably burning him to torture him, but then we're like, we're not monsters. We'll put something on it.
We don't want that to get infected.
Right. The other possibility is that they were using electricity to torture him, and that gel was
Like
for
a conductor.
the like electrical contact,
Yeah.
to be able to shock him better. So that's a possibility where like they weren't trying to heal shit. It was just part of the torture, and they were shocking him, which can stop your heart. So,
ooh, very true. Well, and this is the 1980s, and as we learned last episode, in the 1980s, it wasn't really more into the late 80s, early 90s where we had breakthroughs like DNA evidence and things like that. And they didn't, obviously, they ruled this out as a natural death. So they didn't even think to begin to try to collect anything like DNA.
right.
Which is, not necessarily anybody's fault. How could they know? Oh, we'll be able to test this in 15 years,
Well, yeah, exactly.
So whatever. But let's head into the aliens.
Sure. That's why people are here. I get it. I have no illusions.
Exactly. Right. Well, you think that's why this case in particular? You think people are here for the aliens? Weird.
People in general are here for the aliens.
Let's step away from Ziggy for a moment, and we'll kind of circle back, I'm sure, and talk about some of the things that were found and how his body was found. But let's talk about police officer Alan Godfrey. So Alan Godfrey was one of the responding officers that, came when the body was found, right, and took a look at it. He's the one that said that his face was frozen in terror.
True.
Alan Godfrey, months after the discovery happened, November 28th, 1980, was out on a call about some loose cattle. And while he's out on this call, he doesn't find any loose cattle. He finds a giant UFO. I mean, let's just say it. He comes upon a big UFO, big diamond-shaped UFO, which, I mean, is it diamond-shaped or is it a rhombus?
I don't know. Do you think he knows the difference?
Probably not, but I'm just saying. No, because a rhombus has 5 sides, right? I'm thinking of just, I don't know my geometry, I guess. Anyway, it's a diamond-shaped UFO.
Sure, diamond-shaped UFO.
And it's hovering in the sky. And so he goes to try to call, radio down to the station and be like, there's some shit going on down here. He reaches for the car radio. It's not working. He reaches for his walkie-talkie. It's not working. And while he is stopped and trying to make contact with a human, hopefully, that he knows and trusts, all of a sudden, he is, I'm going to say, up to 100 yards from where he had parked with a chunk of time missing, that chunk of time being roughly around 30 minutes. I'm saying up to 100 yards because everybody says something different, just like how long the guy was missing for. So it's anywhere from like 20 yards all the way up to 100 yards.
Some number of yards away from where he began.
X number of yards. So he wasn't where he had parked initially, and he had missing time. And 30 minutes seems to be pretty much agreed upon. I've seen people like narrow it down to like 27 minutes or whatever. But it was about a good half an hour that was missing. Okay. His boot had been split open, and underneath where the boot was split open, he had an itchy red mark on his foot. So this kind of spins out of control. So obviously, Alan Godfrey did not show up to, the Ziggy body and go, "It's aliens." Like, the aliens didn't come first. There are allegedly other reports in that area of a UFO flap that had been happening. So other people having these UFO sightings, different people. A bus driver was one. Just ask your neighbor. It was probably them that saw one too. We know what a UFO flap looks like. We should anyway, right? And so then he goes on to have this experience, months later. And although he didn't have any memory at the time, oh God, we're gonna go on a little field trip for a minute. Godfrey decides to go through regression therapy.
Boo! Boo! Regression therapy! Boo!
Tobias, what's regression therapy?
It's stupid, is what it is. So this is a pseudoscientific technique using hypnosis, in which practitioners claim to be able to regress people into their previous experiences, allowing them to recapture lost memories. It's been very thoroughly debunked. It's just not a thing. It can most often it likely just leads to people either saying what the hypnotist seems to want to hear, or reliving some sort of confabulation that they have invented. But what it doesn't seem to do very reliably is allow people to remember things better. So unfortunately, Godfrey's 25 minutes of missing time were also, we should mention that it's only 25 minutes of missing time, right? That's not that long. He wasn't missing for even a couple of hours, let alone, a day or more. He's no Travis Walton, right? He wasn't gone very long. 25 minutes, I could lose that just wait, did I stop to look at a squirrel eating a sandwich? Because that might have cost me 25 minutes.
I'd spend 25 minutes on that.
Oh, fuck yeah. I'm just saying, it's real easy to lose that amount of time just on any number of normal fucking things that you would do. I actually have seen a squirrel eating a sandwich. It was one of the highlights of my life. I don't know where he got it. He just had it. He was in a tree. He stole somebody's sandwich.
A whole sandwich?
Yeah. No, for real.
Oh, that's
the damn thing was as big as he was. Anyway, I'm crying just thinking about it. Anyway, okay. So my point is, he wasn't gone for that long, 25 minutes. And then when you're relying exclusively on hypnotic regression to sort of determine your experience, that's a big red flag for me. It's bad enough when people have active memories and then try to fill them in with regression. But if you're just sort of inventing it whole cloth that way, no thanks.
Well, and like I said, we'll take a little detour a little bit. We'll talk about regression therapy. I can't imagine spending a whole episode on that topic. Just that it comes up in some of these situations. We have instances where we have some type of genuine events, and then we have regression therapy that tends to define those events, and it's not really fair. Like in Betty and Barney Hill, that case. I believe that they were abducted. I do.
Sure.
But then Betty goes on to do this regression therapy, and it fucking changes everything because she ends up being shown the fucking star map and, all this crazy stuff that probably that's not what happened. Could it have happened? I guess so. We don't know what happened. And that's the point, So you can write over whatever happened with anything and say, yes, that's what happened,
Yeah. It really muddies the waters.
Yeah.
It's never been shown to produce anything even approaching reliable. Yeah. No thanks.
And
hell, regression fucking hypnosis is how we got the satanic panic, people.
oh, God. Oh, talk about a field trip. I do want to talk about something where it's fucking shitty. It's so shitty that they did this. I think we have to talk. We can't talk about it anywhere else. The Newkirks.
Okay.
The Newkirks did this thing where they did like a reverse regression therapy. And what they did was they took somebody and put them under hypnosis and made them believe that they were abducted by aliens, even though they weren't. Yeah. And that is, I mean, it's interesting. It's like a human, I mean, it's human experimentation. Like, it's interesting because, like, I guess we wouldn't have found out how shitty regression therapy really is without something like that. But also,
no, we already knew that didn't break new fucking ground.
Right. It's really fucked up for you to purposefully give somebody a traumatic event memory just to say that you could.
Well, it's super unethical.
So
I think you would have to be kind of shitty to do that for sure. But anyway, that just, if you guys need more proof that like regression therapy is entirely led by the person doing the hypnosis, I mean, there you go. If you really need it. But I mean, is that really where we want to send people for proof of things?
That's fair. That's a good point.
You know what I mean?
I like to be fair. I can give credit where credit's due.
That's
but
fine. I mean, there are like legitimate scientists and shit who have actually studied this, who know what they're talking about. I'm just saying. Because
people have tried to use it for like CPTSD and stuff like that. People who have had really traumatic events in their life. They're trying to work through it in therapy. It's generally not a good idea, actually, to do that. Because there's a reason why your brain erases that shit. Anyway, it's a whole fucking field of study. Go down that rabbit hole if you want to. But Godfrey has kind of built his entire platform off of this story with the regression therapy. He has also, though, said that he's never said that he was abducted by aliens, just that this is what happened. He went to regression therapy. In his therapy session, he said that he was abducted by aliens, that he was examined by gray beings and a humanoid with a beard.
I love that. Small beings and a tall man with a beard.
Beards are like a thing in the story. I don't know. Bearded men. It's the topic this week.
It was me. And some of my gray buddies.
Some of your grays. The cuck, the mantis cuck was there too. You just couldn't see him because he's
he was in the corner. Yeah, obviously he's in the shadows in the corner. I'm not looking at what he's doing. I don't want to see that mantis cuck. Jesus, put it away. But he doesn't, so we just don't look at him.
And Godfrey's like, I remember the bearded one yelling at something in the corner. I don't.
Right, something about Jesus Christ, dude, gross, put that away. And I don't, it's all very fuzzy.
It was only 25 minutes, so.
Right. There was a squirrel. He had a sandwich, if you can believe that.
And might as well throw a pile of mutilated, merged together birds in the corner, just for, old time's sake.
Worst of fucking abduction detail ever.
So anyway, so now he's gone on to just continue completely submerging himself in the UFO community, but he's also like in denial at the same time. It's such a weird fucking stance for this guy to have. So, he goes on to tell people that he's had this UFO encounter and it got him made fun of a lot, like it did in the 80s. Nowadays, you can say that shit and people are just like, whatever, but back then you couldn't say that shit, but he was very open about it. So he actually had to transfer to a different county or whatever they call them over there. I don't think they're counties, but a different police station for a while. And he actually says that his UFO experience is what caused him to stop being a police officer.
Yeah, I mean, he retired pretty shortly after all that. kind of fell on some hard times, lost his home, got divorced, just, changed careers to alcoholism for a while.
Yeah.
And then, really got into the UFO scene. So who knows?
And he's said that, he's not saying that Adamski was abducted by aliens and that's how he ended up on the coal pile, or, he's not saying that that's what happened, but he's not saying that that's not what happens.
Very ancient aliens. Yeah.
He did go on to publish a book. He put out a book in 2017, and this is kind of where I didn't do my due diligence as much as I should have, because the book went on to catalog much stranger events that he really didn't talk about prior to putting this book out, that involve threatening visitors after his experience, right? Telling him to not talk about the events that happened. He talks about being approached by a man who had like a whole file. So when he had seen the UFO, he actually did like a quick sketch of it, he says. And,
Right.
The file contained like that sketch and like shit that this person shouldn't have, and didn't know what else was in it because they wouldn't let him look at it. And basically, told him he needs to stop talking about this. And I mean, your mileage may vary, you guys, I guess. Take it with a grain of salt, whatever. It just seems so interesting that those details didn't emerge until this book came out.
Well, yeah, I mean, no shit, right? Like, so decades later, he's like, oh, yeah, and what really happened was this spooky, like, man in black type showed up at my work, because that's where he first met him, I guess, was it, in the chief inspector's office. And the guy's just like, you better shut up about these UFOs. And then he just keeps running into them.
Yeah.
He's like, next thing I know, the guy's like on my bowling team telling me to shut up about UFOs. I mean, like, whatever. He just keeps seeing him around. I don't know. It's difficult for me when people add those kinds of details like years later. And I'm not saying that it didn't happen because I don't know. What I am saying is that it loses a lot of credibility when it's only mentioned decades later.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of the fucking, the goofy dude following around John Keel in Point Pleasant. But they're, like, always missing each other. You know what I'm talking about?
Which one?
It's just, there's, like, one guy, and he's, like, going around town asking everybody about Keel. Oh, John Keel, and...
Sure.
And then, Keel never, like, they never meet. And Keel thinks he's a Men in Black or something.
Right. And it's probably just some like MUFON nerd. Yeah.
It could be a couple of different people, and it's Keel. So he's like, that's the same guy.
Right? Probably one of them Oriental looking strangers.
Oh, God.
His words, not mine, people.
Literally.
I know that's not cool to say. I'm just saying that's the kind of shit he said.
That's the kind of shit you can read it for yourself. Mouthpin prophecies. Yeah. But that's what it just. I don't know. It just. Even though in this story, he did, Godfrey did meet the guy, but it's just ridiculous, is what it is.
It is.
But then people have speculated. Like I saw speculation that like maybe there was a guy, and maybe it was a guy who like worked for the police and was just trying to get him to shut the fuck up because he was embarrassing himself and everybody.
That could be.
I mean, for his own fucking, it wasn't like threatening, like, oh, you should shut the fuck up about that. It was like, dude, seriously, like chill about the UFO stuff.
Yeah. Like you sound like a crazy person, like I'm sorry, but you gotta stop.
You gotta calm down. He didn't actually have his file. He just had a file on his hand one day and he just assumed it was about him. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
He was like, chill out. But of course, this is where people, where the UFO connection comes into play here is, because this police officer had this UFO event and other people had these UFO sightings in and around the town. Obviously, when somebody goes missing, when there's a UFO flap, it has to be aliens. It can't possibly be anything else.
Has to be. Well, and this wasn't even just like your run-of-the-mill police officer UFO sighting either. Which feels weird to say, but it's true because there are a ton of UFO sightings from police officers. This was one where like shortly after, the dude's life just implodes. Like, it falls apart. He loses everything, becomes an alcoholic, and next thing you know, he's writing books called Who or What Were They? With like half an alien Gray's face on the cover.
Yeah. And, like I said, I haven't read it, so I didn't go that far. If I have to guess, if I have to speculate here's what I'm going to say about it. I think Alan Godfrey had a strange UFO encounter. I do. I don't think his regression therapy is worth anything. And he's admitted that too. Like I said, I'll get, in all fairness.
That's true. He did say that.
He said that I'm not saying I was taken on a ship. I'm just saying that's what I said during that session. But I do think he probably had a UFO encounter. And, I do think that, maybe something about this guy's death, the way it was found, maybe the mysterious circumstances behind it, could potentially be traumatizing to him. I don't know their crime rate there. Police officers do see a lot of death, a lot of things that you and I can't imagine unless you were, like me and looked for this shit on the internet all the time. But, but they see traumatic shit and it can be bad for their psyche. I will say that. ACAB and all, but at the end of the day, being a police officer is a very hard job. It can be very difficult, and the shit that you deal with can be immense. So maybe it's just the stress of the job in general that kind of put him in a position to put really heavy focus on this other strange event that he experienced in his life. But I don't know. I don't think there were people following him around, telling him to not talk about his encounter. I mean, I've seen UFOs. I've had weird experiences, and nobody has ever threatened me about it.
You better stop talking about your weird experiences. I'm going to be so mad.
It's good. It's best for your family. And it's like, well, it probably is. You're probably right.
You can't see my face right now, but I'm furious.
You have my file sitting there? Is that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I have a file.
That's me. My name starts with A. It must be mine.
Yep. Confirmed.
I'm just saying, guys, I do a lecture on the Men in Black. Like, it's not that I think it's all entirely bullshit, but there's a lot of questionable stuff around it. I'll say that just in general. So already when you have these strange, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. Why do they pick some people and not others? Period. There you go. You don't need any more questions than that.
It's true. To me, the Men in Black narrative has, considering it started with admitted hoaxster Gray Barker, the Men in Black narrative to me has always seemed like something superimposed upon an experience to give it extra weight, to make it seem more important than it really is. It's the kind of thing that people want to believe because it makes them seem more important than they are. So
yeah, and
sorry if somebody out there is just like, no, my Men in Black are real. Yeah, I guess maybe you're the special one. I bet that's probably it. It's probably not my thing.
It's just you. No, and I tell that story about, I may have encountered a Men in Black. I'm not saying he is for sure a Men in Black. I don't know. It was weird going with the film student and doing the UFO documentary. It was a weird event, but I can't say like it's because he's part of some like secret government program or he's part of an alien race. Both of those are fair game in this situation. He could just be somebody who is like me and takes years to make a documentary. I don't know.
For all we know, and this is the likeliest explanation to me, is he's like some foot fetishist who's just taking pictures of women's feet under the table and luring them in by getting them to talk about UFOs.
Because he
just saying,
really likes UFOs.
Yeah.
That makes sense, yeah.
See?
But anything's fair game. It could be that, right? That's just as equal of an opportunity as him being a Men in Black. I don't know. Right. Anyway, but when these strange visitors show up, it sends a red flag to me because that sounds really fucking cool in a UFO story. Like, if you were to make up a story, like, that's cool. Like, you want to add that detail.
Yeah. I think it's entirely possible that he went into work And there was somebody there, like a higher up, who was just like, hey, don't talk about your UFO story to the media, and he might interpret that a certain way. And to them, it's like, you're going to make a laughing stock of this police department, and we don't want that. And to him, in his head, it's, oh, these must be, shadowy government forces trying to keep me from, disclosing the truth or whatever. But really, they're just like, we just don't want you to embarrass us.
Well, or he just remembered that while he's writing his book, he remembers that event, 35 years later. And
Right.
we're not great at remembering things. And it was somebody that he knew, somebody that, like you said, a higher up that he was familiar with. And in his brain, he's like, who was that was telling me? That's weird. I don't really remember,
Sure. And over 30 years, again, like, our memories are really just stories that we tell ourselves over and over and over again. And as we do so, we have a tendency to change them if we're not careful about it, right? And so over the course of, and by that I mean, like, write it down and then go back and compare that to what you really think, so you can be like, oh no, what I think now is wrong because I wrote down the actual thing, so I wouldn't misremember it later. Anyway, over the course of 30 years, he's been telling and retelling and embellishing this story to himself, whether he's doing it consciously or not.
Right.
To the point where, like I said, it lacks credibility because you can't trust the fact that what he's giving you is an accurate representation of events because they weren't recorded soon enough. Like, I have stories that I've been telling for years and years and years, and I recorded them shortly after they happened. Like, I wrote them down. So now I can go back and be like, oh, okay, shit. Like, yeah, this is how it really happened. Like, versus what, like, any details that I might have changed over that course of time. And actually, in doing so, I kind of keep the memories fresh. And so I think there's less of the sort of confabulation happening. That is to say, like, fewer sort of invented details in those memories, but only because I'm actively fighting it. If I wasn't, they would probably be unrecognizable by now.
And that's normal. So, like, for anybody that's listening to this, like, don't feel badly if you have not written down all your fucking memories, right? And you may embellish them or whatever. It's human to do that. Like, your brain isn't an infinite storage space. It really isn't. Which is, also a field trip maybe for another day. But it really isn't. And it rewrites things a lot. And it's not your fault, and it's nothing you can do except for maybe be conscious about writing shit down more. I mean, that's really it. Journal, let's do some journaling. And I'm not saying that Alan Godfrey is a bad person for embellishing these stories. I'm not saying I think he's a hoaxer. Tobias might be saying that. I don't know. But I'm not saying that he made this up. I'm just saying I do think he had a genuine experience, but I do think he has gone on to embellish that experience.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, that would be my preliminary take as well, without actually knowing the guy or sitting down and talking to him or anything. It seems that way. It seems like he had this experience and then his life fell apart, and now he's sort of embedded himself in the UFO scene. Now, whether those events are related or not,
right?
I don't know. None of us know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, it's just as likely that his life fell apart because he was a mess as a person. And he thought he could climb out of that through joining the UFO community, as it is that his life fell apart because of a UFO experience.
Sure.
I admit either is possible, but I don't think either one holds any more weight than the other right now.
Yeah. So I don't really have anything else to say about Alan Godfrey. I figured we'd go back to Adamski.
Sure.
And go from there. Here is my personal list of possibilities from least likely to most likely. So for me, the least likely explanation is that he died of a heart attack on top of a pile of coal.
Okay, so the least likely explanation is that he died of a heart attack specifically on the coal pile.
By himself, right? By himself,
Okay.
wandering the wilderness for days on end until he succumbed to a heart attack on his own accord.
Gotcha.
That's the least likely to me.
Okay.
Tobias, do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, like that one seems very unlikely.
That just doesn't check out. So next step. Oh, I forgot. We didn't even mention that some people think it was the KGB. That didn't
that's right.
probably happen either. I don't see
No.
why it would. There's no connection or any reason why the KGB would be after this 56-year-old Polish man. So
yeah, I mean, fair.
Well, I'm just going to stick that right with the heart attack on his own accord situation.
Sure. Between that and aliens, probably.
The next one is aliens, right? That's the second least likely explanation is aliens, because they are some unusual circumstances. I'll give him that. It seems really weird, the burns and the death for no reason, and
I get it. It seems like he was dropped on top of that coal pile.
Yeah.
Right? Because his clothes weren't dirty. We don't know how he got up there. There was no sign of disturbance on the coal pile that would indicate he had climbed up there. Yeah, I mean, it seems like he just fell out of the sky onto it. So I get how people are able to make that leap to death by UFO, where this UFO abducted him and then just drops him out of the sky on top of the coal pile.
Right. The Trevor Parker didn't see him during his time when he was there until he came back after and found the body. There was no reported sightings of him in those days that he was missing.
Right.
Okay, fine. Aliens. Sure. Why not? But I think the most likely explanation, Tobias, is probably, he was killed by these people in his life that wanted to kill him.
Or killed him on accident.
On accident,
They kidnapped him and they wanted something out of him, but he died either on purpose or on accident. I'm leaning towards on accident personally, because you don't bother to take care of somebody enough to even let them shave or whatever if you're just going to kill them.
That's right. Usually people that are tortured to death, they're tortured to death, for real. They, have obvious signs of torture.
Yeah. I think they were trying to scare him into doing something, and things got out of hand.
Yeah.
And he ended up dying.
And it scared him. And let's just pretend for a second that the claim that he had, an abject look of terror on his face was real. Then that would still make sense in the case of being, messed with to death.
Sure.
Even though I don't think that's real. So.
No, it's not a thing.
Somebody would have to pose his face that way and sew it up. And I'm just saying. Anyway.
Right. That's why most dead bodies, they just look like they're asleep, because, a part of the normal post-mortem process is, you've got rigor mortis and then you've got everything loosening up after that.
Right. Rigor mortis doesn't last forever,
No.
And it's not instantaneous either. So,
no.
Anyway, it just doesn't make sense for the face to be any type of way.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think that's the most likely explanation. I think that's really fucking sad. Because it means there was an injustice done here and this wasn't thoroughly investigated. And, you have a person or potentially people who killed a guy and just lived the rest of their life.
Yeah. Somebody out there, a real human being, not a mantis cuck or a fucking little gray pervert or whatever, an actual real person knows what happened to this guy.
Yeah.
They know what killed, and they know who killed and what happened to Zigmund Adamski. And they could have come forward, or they could have been caught, but they didn't, and they weren't. And now his family never got closure.
Yeah. Right. And, I think his wife was right on the money. I think she's right. I think maybe he wasn't kidnapped. Maybe he went willingly. Again, we don't know. We don't know
At first.
those details.
Yeah.
But either way, this seems like it was probably some type of human intervention. Now, how did he get on the coal pile? Again, just because the coal pile didn't look disturbed doesn't mean it wasn't.
If you dumped him up there and you notice you kicked a bunch of coal down, you could have just thrown it back on the pile.
Right, or just scooted it close to the bottom to make it look like it's just there. I mean, again, it's
Yeah.
not like they did a bunch of forensics for the crime scene.
It wouldn't be hard to make it look like the coal pile was undisturbed.
And why would they place him in such an obvious place? Well, if it was an accident, I mean, let's be honest, as shitty as it is, they probably did have some type of guilt and wanted him to be found.
That's a great point. They could have felt bad. Absolutely.
I mean, believe it or not, but then didn't want to go to prison the rest of their life. And I guess I don't blame them. I wouldn't either.
Sure. Nobody does.
If we're gonna role play as killers here, let's go all the way.
Yeah, I think they could have felt guilt and were like, we got to put him somewhere, and we don't want his wife to just never know what happened to him, so let's put him on top of this coal pile. We know this dude this dude's going to come back eventually, and he'll find him.
Yeah.
And, it'll be a weird place, and maybe it'll make it more difficult for people to trace it back to us.
I don't even know if who knows if they even thought that.
That's giving them a lot of credit. I know.
But we don't know because, we don't kill people. I don't kill people. I don't think Tobias does either.
I mean, not a lot.
No, that's fine. But if I see a hungry squirrel and someone's got a sandwich, you better watch out.
Right? Do chimps count as people? Because I swear to God, if I see a chimp loose, I know what they do to people.
It's on site. I don't think anybody would blame you. I think they would understand. No. Well, PETA would hate you. They'd be like, you should have just let it rip your genitals off. What's wrong with you? And you're like, yeah.
Well, look, PETA, just because you don't have genitals doesn't mean the rest of us don't want ours. Ha PETA burn. Fuck PETA, though.
PETA burn. Yeah, fuck PETA.
I don't give a fuck about PETA.
Yeah, terrible people. Anyway. Exactly. I mean, who knows? Either way, again, this isn't like just it's aliens, and that's so easy, right? That's got to be it. It has to be aliens.
Right.
But I don't fault anybody for making that connection. It's just so weird how out of hand that connection got, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. To the point where it overshadows much more likely obvious scenarios.
Yeah. This isn't quite the same thing that we had last week with the dog man killing people. No. Because those people are just straight up fucking harassing real family members and shit about deaths of their family members and
right.
And then just straight up making shit up. I mean, at least we actually had a real dead body and stuff, this time.
It's true. Yeah, there's an actual coroner's report.
Right. And I mean, so it's not quite in the same vein. It just seems to be, these stories got connected and people loved that story and it was fun and it's probably fun for TV. And I'm sure there's something on the History Channel about it that makes it seem like it's aliens, but it just probably wasn't aliens this time.
Right.
But the one coroner did say that, he's also definitely not saying it's aliens, but he's saying he kind of wouldn't be surprised if we find out it was.
Oh, yeah. Surprise, surprise. The guy who was part of the investigation who failed to find this guy's killer is cool with it being a spooky paranormal explanation.
Well,
what's the alternative? Yeah, no, we just fucked up, dude.
Right.
I don't know. It's probably just a guy that killed him, but fuck if I know who. Of course they're not going to say that.
No, that would be bad. I don't know if they're voted for like they are here in America, over there to get in their job. That's weird.
Right.
I don't know politics in other countries. I guess maybe I should have for this for this story, but whatever. I don't know. Do you have any final thoughts about this shorter episode today? Nate's going to be so happy with us.
I think that's good. It's good to have shorter episodes sometimes. There's no point in dragging something out unnecessarily.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, where I land on this, it should be no surprise to anybody. I think that it is a damn shame that people latched on to this alien abduction scenario in the death of Zigmund Adamski, because what I think it has done is obfuscated the fact that in all likelihood he was killed by a regular old human being, and that if investigators had conducted the investigation properly the first time, they would have caught them. Failing that, if people weren't so obsessed with ridiculous bullshit, maybe we would have been able to follow some leads and find them later. But at this point, it's probably too fucking late. So unfortunately, this guy and his family are unlikely to get justice or any kind of closure. And that shit breaks my heart. And I think it's something that gets glossed over too much on the entertainment side of this industry. But these were real people. You know, this was a real guy. He had a real wife who loved him and wanted him to come home, and he fucking didn't.
Yeah.
And when that shit happens, it is not entertaining. It is tragic.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be making fun, spooky narratives out of it. We should be doing everything we can to solve these mysteries in a way that is fucking real, because we owe that to people. Just on a basic human level, we owe that to each other. So I just hope people remember that shit.
And you know what's sad is that I'm just, pontificating. I'm just kind of not pontificating, speculating about what could have happened. I feel like if they just even would have questioned the individuals that could be responsible for this, I feel like they would have broke right away. Because I do think that the dumping of the body in an obvious spot was a guilt thing. I mean, I'm just saying.
Sure.
And I think that
makes
they
sense.
could have it could have been solved, but because for whatever fucking reason they didn't, then that part doesn't make any sense. That's the fucking mystery of why they just chalked it up to heart
They were
attack.
Polish. They were Polish immigrants in 1980.
Yeah.
So
right.
we're probably looking at discrimination. Let's just say it. Call a spade a spade. We're probably looking at the police not caring that much about Polish immigrants.
So frustrating. And the killers are probably dead now. I mean, that'd be crazy if they were still alive. They'd be like the oldest people ever. If they're around his age, I guess. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. But it's just sad. It's an injustice. And, we can have fun and talk about fun stuff. But, at the end of the day, we got to be real here.
Oh, yeah. Like, I like to have fun and I like to speculate. But when shit's real, it's real. And you got to treat it like it's fucking real. And it's no longer here for our entertainment, know? And that includes legitimate witness experiences, This is a particularly serious case, obviously, because it involved a man's death. But, I feel the same way when it comes to people reporting, their own authentic paranormal experiences, like there's a certain weight with which I treat those. And I'm, much more willing to joke around with that kind of stuff than probably I am with certain aspects of this. But it's always poking fun at the circumstances and never the people, never the person involved. Right. So. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, that's for sure. That's why it was easier to make fun of Godfrey. I'm just kidding. We're not making fun of him either.
Yeah.
We're
sure. Yeah, of course. Unless it's like an obvious hoaxer or something, in which case that's fine. Like, we can make fun of them. Who gives a shit? They have it coming.
Right. They do it to themselves,
Right.
I will check out his book, though. I mean, I am interested in it. Like, I do want to read it. Just saying.
Godfrey's book? Yeah, sure.
So I'm going to check that out. And if you guys have any other information, maybe something we didn't cover, maybe there's something huge about this case that we totally overlooked that made it for sure aliens, just let us know. Like, we're open to the possibilities. We can have our minds changed. Like, that's the beauty of it. But chances are, I don't think that's going to happen. So challenge me. I dare you. Do it. That's a threat.
Do it.
So anyway, with all that being said, guys, we will see you back here next Wednesday.